Welcome back, geometry students. This is Mr. Martin. This video is going to cover section 7.1 on reflections. So we've already talked about translations, so make sure you're pretty set on those. If you have questions about those, make sure you ask me or your teacher. So let's start with a little flashback on what is a reflection. So if you recall, a reflection is when an object is flipped over a line of symmetry. So if I have a line here and then I have some object on this side and I wanted to reflect it, I would basically be flipping it over the line, so now the new object would end up over here. And again, just like we did with translations, if this was A, B, C, D, E, the new one, we would use the prime notation, so this would be A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, and E prime. Okay, so now we know which was the original, the red one, and which was the image, the blue one. This is our image. Again, there's some vocabulary. Image, original. Okay, sometimes the original is called the parent, and the image is called the child. So that's what our reflection is. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples. So for the first one, it says graph the following image using the given transformation. So we are going to reflect across the y-axis. So now our y-axis here is acting like our mirror. So basically what's going to happen is, if there is stuff on both sides of the y-axis, like there is in this case, everything on one side is going to get flipped to the other side. So let's start with point A. Since point A is 1 unit to the right of the y-axis, when we reflect it, it's going to end up over here 1 unit to the left. Okay, let's take a look at D. D is 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the left, so when I flip it over the y-axis, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the right. So there's D prime. And here's M. We can see that M is 1, 2, 3 units to the left. So when we reflect it, it will be 1, 2, 3 units to the right. And then we've got something interesting happening here with point S. Since it's on the y-axis, it really doesn't get reflected. So S and S prime are going to be in the same exact spot because it's not any distance away from the y-axis. And then we just connect the dots to draw our figure. And if you want to shade it in, you can go ahead and shade in the new figure. So my red and yellow highlighted figure is the reflection of the original over the y-axis. Alright, so now it's your turn. Go ahead and pause the video. And I want you to try part B. And then when you restart the video, the solution will be up there, and I'll go through a brief explanation. Again, if you have any trouble with these questions and you can't figure it out from the video, make sure that you ask when you're in class. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video, and when you restart it, we'll talk about the solution. Alright, welcome back. Here's the solution to part B. So now you notice that I highlighted the x-axis here. I made it red so I could visualize it. Before I highlighted the y-axis in part A, so here I highlighted the x-axis because I wanted to reflect across or over the x-axis. So if we look at point C was 1, 2, 3, 4 units above the x-axis, so when I reflect it across, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 units below. Alright, and same thing with W, 1 unit below. W prime is 1 unit above for W and 1 unit below for W prime. And then Z was 2 units above, or 2 units below. So Z prime is 2 units above notice the stuff that was below flips to above, and the stuff that was above flips to below. And let's see, let's fix this because I've got a little mistake here. Let's fix that. So x is 1 unit below the x-axis, so x prime is going to be 1 unit above. Wondering if anyone else made that mistake as well. So let's redraw that. So we fixed, I mistakenly was thinking to flip that over the y-axis. Instead I had to flip it over the x. So it's below, I need to flip it above. Fix our highlighting, and there is actually the correct answer. So if you made that mistake as well, go ahead and fix that. Alright, moving on to example 2. Now we want to describe the transformation. So we have to figure out what kind of transformation has occurred. So I've got my original image up here. I know it's the original because there's no primes with it. And down here I can see this is f prime, w prime, v prime, and x prime. And I want to figure out what kind of transformation. So eventually we're going to be working on these transformations together, the translations that we did before, just sliding it to a new spot, and the reflections that we're working on right now. So it's important not to forget about those. So we can see that this has not just been slid over to another spot. It looks like it's been flipped over. So if we look, it looks like this is the middle, and then each of these points has been flipped over it. So f has flipped below to f prime, x has been flipped below to x prime, and v has been flipped over, and w has been flipped over to w prime. So for this particular problem, we have a reflection over the x-axis. Alright, so as usual, if you have questions or you need to rewind something because you missed it, feel free to do so. Let's move on to part B. So now let's try and draw that mirror line, the line of reflection, the line of symmetry. So it looks like it goes right through here. And if you notice, this is different from the other problems that we've worked on so far because this red line that I drew is not the x-axis or the y-axis. But we can see that our black quadrilateral and the red quadrilateral are mirror images of each other across this red line. So now we have to figure out what this line is. We know it's a reflection, so it's a reflection over the line, and we're going to figure out what the equation of this line is. So a little review of algebra here. I've got a vertical line, and this vertical line crosses through the x-axis, and it crosses through the x-axis at 1. Therefore, its equation is going to be x equals 1. Alright, so this one's a little bit different. A lot of times we'll reflect over the x-axis or the y-axis. Once in a while, we'll reflect over a different line that's not the x-axis or the y-axis. Alright, moving on. So now we're going to be given these rules similar to what we had when we did translations. So graph the following images using the given transformation, then state the transformation that occurred. Alright, so I am going to start by writing the coordinates for E, K, and G. So for E, I've got negative 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 4, and then down 1, so negative 1. And K is negative 1, 0. And G is negative 1, 2, 3. And we went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5. Alright, so first step, find the coordinates of the original points. And now, this is our transformation rule here. I'm going to take all the original xy values, and I'm going to make the x values the opposite. That's the little negative there. And all the y values are going to stay the same. So the x values change to the opposite of what they originally were, and the y values are just going to stay the same. So now if e was -4, -1, e prime is going to be +4, -1. So I changed the x to its opposite, -4 to +4, and the y value stayed the same. So for k prime, we're going to change it to the opposite of x, so the -1 becomes +1. The y value stays the same. Moving on to g, the -3 changes to +3, and the y value again stays the same. So we can go ahead and graph these. So we've got 4, -1 for e prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, -1. That's e prime. And 1, 0 for k. So 1, 0 is right there for k prime. And for g prime, I have 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's g prime. Let's go ahead and connect the dots. And I'm going to highlight it in so I can more easily see which is my image. Alright, so there's the image. That's the transformation. Now we need to figure out, well, how did we get that image? Well, I can see that this is right in between my two figures. So these are mirror images of each other over the transformation. This is a reflection over the y-axis. Alright, so again, go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and try the next problem, part B. It's got a slightly different rule, but very similar. And then when you come back, we will talk about the solution. So pause the video, try part B now. Okay, here's the solution for part B. Just to point out, the first thing that I did was I wrote out the coordinates, the ordered pairs for each of the original points I, F, and D. Then I applied the rule. Notice the x values here are staying the same, but the y values again are changing to the opposite. So you could say that as -y, but I prefer to think of it as the opposite. So now before I had y values of 2, 4, and 1, so now they're all the opposite, -2, -4, and -1. And then when I go ahead and I graph these new points, I get my image triangle down here below the x-axis, and I can see that this is my mirror line here, which is the x-axis, so it's a reflection over the x-axis. Alright, so that's going to be the end of this video. Why don't you go ahead and try example 4, and then I will have this solution available to you in class, so you can check that to see if you did it right, because that's a little bit more involved. And we will see you in the next video.